here. You want to go ahead and I guess get started and introduce yourself to the folks?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for inviting me, by the way. Yeah, definitely been long overdue. I'm Kelvin, aka KG.Codes. I've been in the industry more than 10 years now. I started off my career, I'd say in college, or at least my like tech career, my love of coding and love
Hmm.
of tech. I actually went to college to be a mechanical engineer because that's all I
Hmm.
knew. I only knew of a few things you could do. You could be a doctor, you could be an engineer, you could be a
Heard
lawyer.
you.
I like
Same.
tech really, like I thought tech you'd have to be like some sort of like whiz kid or something to even be in the tech. It just wasn't something that was presented to me when I was younger. So I got to college. I was in the engineering school at a college here in Georgia called
Hmm.
Mercer University. They had a class called Programming for Engineers, and that
Hmm.
class changed my life. I was always into computers and stuff like that when I was younger, and like I dabbled in just being like using computers a lot. But
Hmm.
when I took that class in college, we used C++, which is I
Ooh.
learned was one of the more harder languages. But they made us use C++, and all the other engineers hated that class, but I loved it.
You
And I was
enjoyed
like,
it.
yeah, I
So
was
you're
like, this
going
is fun.
somewhere
I'm
with
like,
this one.
right, like we're
Glad you
using
enjoyed
C++,
it.
and I'm just like I created like a calculator, like you take in one input,
Hmm.
take in a second input, and it adds the numbers together, and I was hooked. I was like, I just built something from nothing,
Yeah.
and I and all
You're
the
like,
other
wait, this is power.
right. This is something here. And so all the other engineers hated it. I hated all the engineering stuff. So then I found out, oh, there's a major for this. I didn't even know it was a major for it, especially not even at the school. And I was like, oh, so from then on, the rest is history. I
You
switched my
switched.
major. Yeah, switched my
And here
major.
we are.
Right. I switched my major to computer science and completed the degree in that after a number of years after that. And then I went on to get my first tech job. This was probably like almost 10 years ago. Get my first tech job at a chat company in Atlanta.
And what
And
company was it? You
it was
said,
called Contact at Once, actually. It had a weird
okay.
name, but like it was a company, like if you ever chatting, you're going to get some service, you need like some help from customer service on a website,
Hmm.
and they have like a chat feature instead of calling them or instead of emailing
Oh.
them.
So that
That's
was
the
like
service,
outsourced
right?
to this company?
Like
Oh, interesting. Okay.
so that company particularly did it for autotrader.com. So it did it for a lot of car
Mm.
dealerships and car companies. So like Toyota,
Yeah, yeah.
Honda, like so like if you ever like had to go chat with a dealership about a car, it probably was Contact at Once application that was being used. And
And
so
then, so then you started there, and with this chat connect was your first gig then. Okay.
right, exactly. Yep, so that was my first tech job at an interview. Struggled at the interview, but luckily before that, and which would probably be something that I'd share as a tip, but before that I had did a lot of like freelancing and I did a lot of self-learning even after college. So I got all this college information,
Hmm.
foundation, stuff like that, but I did a little bit of work outside of college that kind of helped me a kick in the pants to the
Okay. Yeah.
interviewers to hire me because I was missing a lot of questions. But
I was gonna ask you
sure.
that. Do you feel like you needed that hands-on learning after college, even though you kind of got the theory of it? Do you feel like you still there was like a gap?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I didn't know that till I got in the interviews. I mean,
Mm.
I really didn't. I thought the interviews, this is back in the day before like social media was so prevalent, you could
Hmm.
actually get a better view into what was going on
Yeah.
outside of yourself
Yeah.
and, the people you talk to. And so I didn't know what the interviews were like. I thought it was going to be more like the typical interviews I had, more surface level. They ask you
Hmm.
about your experience. They tell you what the job's about, and you basically like get the job. Like it's like
You woke up when you went to that
right,
first one.
like they were grilling me technically
Uh,
on every concept, and so I got a lot right to my credit,
mm.
but I got a lot wrong later when became the interview. I said, man, I look back on myself and I said, man, I missed a lot of questions that now
Questions.
I would
Yeah.
mark myself bad for missing, at this point. So but like I had that experience and I literally pulled up, I was working on a social media app. It failed, but I was working on a social media app between
Mm-hmm.
college and the first job. But the fact that I did that social media app, it was so complicated because social media they're like back
Yeah.
then, especially those type of apps were really complicated back then. And so I showed them this app in the interview, like it was a website, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a complex application. Showing them that in the interview, I think, is the one thing that kicked it on. They were like, "You literally you
You
doing
did
everything that
this.
we've done here 10 times over by doing this social media app." They were like, "You did this by yourself?" Like, yeah.
They're like,
And
wait a
so,
minute, you got
right,
some skills. We want you over here.
right. So that's just a tip for people. Like, build,
Yeah.
productize, along with your learning that you do in school, boot camps,
Mm-hmm.
do your own projects too. Find problems that you can solve
Yeah.
yourself to pad your resume with. Not only, it kind of does two things. It helps you build your skills up. Like, you're just going to get better inherently because you're going to solve problems that you can't through
Mm-hmm.
tutorials, you can't through teachings. You're going to run into problems like that like nothing can teach besides going through it,
Doing the
experience.
motion.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, and then the second thing, if you productize it and really put it out there as like a real project, you can take that as like you can show that to people. You can show that to interviews. It doesn't always come up in interviews, but there's been
Mm-hmm.
times when, like, I have an app in the App Store now. There's been times when I literally just it came up in conversation. It comes up naturally. It's the perfect time. It's like, oh, I got an app in the App Store. You should go check it out. And there's been times when it's
And
helped
that's
me.
some,
Sure.
and that's something to be proud of, and that's an
Right.
accomplishment that you've done, that you push it to the App Store. And I always tell folks, like creating projects, there's a lot of open source opportunities too.
Yes.
Like I think right now at work, there's a couple of us that are doing an open source volunteer opportunity for marine biology right now. There's a
Nice.
need. And I'm learning through that process, but I'm also encountering like real world problems and how
Yeah.
tech can help facilitate research with marine biology. Um,
Right.
and yeah, I think it's such important for people to understand that gap. But it's interesting you say that because I feel like another thing I wanted to mention earlier was that so you did the college route, right? And you went to college to study computer science, but then you came out of college and you found yourself that you lacked some kind of skills and training that college didn't fit in. And it's funny because then if we go to the boot camp route, right? The boot camp
Hmm.
route, folks that go to boot camp, which is me,
Hmm.
right? We then kind of get the hands-on practice of it and the skills of it, but then we lack like the theory as of it
Hmm.
as well. So there's always
Yeah.
this like vice
Trade-offs.
versa where there's still a gap regardless of what route you take. There's
Hmm.
still like a gap that you yourself as a developer and programmer have to ensure that you fill it in for yourself, right?
Wow. Yeah.
And I
That's
think
a
that's such a common thing I'm seeing recently. And I as not a software engineer, I am also understanding that and coming into that sense that, you as someone who went to college is missing like the practical hands-on work. Me, I got that, but then now
mhm.
I'm missing like the theory of it.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I mean, I have my thoughts about college, high school, even just the way
Yeah.
they prepare you. I think sometimes they lack, high school and college, they sometimes lack some of the more practical things that I feel like it wouldn't take them much effort to teach you. But
Hmm.
to the credit of the college I went to, sorry, and the high school I went to, I learned a lot of intangibles, how to work on a team, how to meet deadlines. I got exposure to more than just programming since it was like oops, my computer came on, sorry. But
It's
like
good.
university,
Hmm.
so they're making you take all these different classes around in different places, which can be considered a waste, but I think it was something that actually broadened my horizons. And like you said, they taught you a bunch of foundational things.
Hmm.
So like data structure and algorithm, you're gonna always have a class in the computer science curriculum for that, which you will likely need. You will run into it at some point in your interview
Yeah. Oh, for
journey
sure.
that you're gonna run into those data structures. Now, even if you try to avoid them, at some point you're gonna get hit with them. And
Hmm.
if you're trying to get into big tech or larger companies,
Hmm.
they likely
That's a
have those.
must.
So right, and then you learn other things as well, but you really just you get a chance to build a strong computer science foundation. But like you said, you just miss, like, we weren't using Git, we weren't using source control at my school. Now, maybe today they do. This is like
Mm-hmm.
9-10 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe today they do this, but we weren't using, we were like dropping files in FTP. We were just basically dropping files into a file server for our teachers. When we could have been using source control like we would in an everyday job.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why not do that?
Because, yeah. If I'm going to do in the workforce.
Right. So it was like, and then it was just a lot of stuff that, was missing. But to their credit, there were things that translated over, of course, a lot of things. Yeah. But really, I'd say I got additionally a lot of experience. Those couple, I took kind of like a gap after I graduated to just kind of, I was working with my folks on like a family business thing. And at the same time, I was working on like doing freelance basically. And so I took on like a huge project where I just took on one project from one client that was like really huge. And I learned so much from that padded my college experience that I think that's really what helped me level up and get a job quickly. Yeah.
I wanted to, there's so many things you said that I want to unpack, sure. But I know you and your platform, you share so much data structure and algorithms. You do lives, I noticed, with folks, and you stream these in other different platforms. And kudos to you, because I so struggle with data structures and algorithms. So you get online, I've even tapped into one of your lives, and you yourself like do a walkthrough and you talk through the problem, and then you also, you make mistakes and you're okay with that, right? Being live, yeah. And you ask the audience for input. I guess if we can just pivot into that, like, sure. What are your tips on studying for data structures and algorithms?
Oh man, yeah, that's a deep question. But so I mean, myself. You can
summarize it or just like give like 3 examples, I guess.
For sure. And like, I mean, just a background on myself. Like, I was in the industry. Like when I first got in the industry, it wasn't so prevalent. So when I first because I've been at the same job for a really long time, basically since I got in the industry. And so when I got in that job, they didn't do data structures and algorithms. And so I really didn't learn about them until we started adopting them for our interview process. So I never went through the gauntlet that some of y'all have to go through now.
Wow.
Until and I had like in my whole career, like especially like the first 5 years, I was like, those are so stupid. Like, why would anybody ask somebody that? Because it doesn't 100% correlate to your regular job. And so I had to kind of turn the corner on it, and I was getting forced to interview with them at work because that was part of our process. And so I had to turn the corner myself and say, okay, I need to embrace this, like stop being afraid. Because deep down the root of it, I was a little fear. And so I had to kind of turn around and just embrace it. And now I've gotten to a point where I'm able to like do it in front of like on TikTok. It's like 1,000 people on there sometimes or something. So I don't know why TikTok's so crazy, but with the algorithm. But yeah, but like to do it in front of, if I can do that in front of them, then the interview of one person is different because there's more pressure with that. But it still gives me that sense of like somebody's watching, and it gets me more comfortable with explaining myself in front of people, with kind of judgmental eyes on you. But anyway, to get back to the tips, I would say number one, is you got to just do the problems. Yeah. But learn foundationally the patterns to the problems first before trying to just do 1,000 different problems. So like one technique is to just do 1,000 problems on Leetcode, and then somehow you will learn the patterns to it. Eventually you do enough problems, you'll start to see there's commonality to the solutions. But one thing that really helped boost me was I got this tool, and it's not a plug for them. I don't, have any ties with them, but Algo Monster. This tool called Algo Monster. Okay. What it does, and it's kind of like one similar tool is I think it's Grokking the coding interview or something like that. Okay. What they do is they boil down the problems into concepts, and they rank the concepts, the patterns, in order of the importance, like as far as how much they show up in interviews. And so they give you like an ROI, like a return on investment, on if you learn like 2-pointer a pattern or the binary search pattern. Right. And so then they teach you the concept first, and then they send you through a bunch of problems, and then you can use Leetcode to kind of reinforce what you've learned as far as the pattern. You can go on Leetcode and
Mm.
search some of the problems by the pattern type. And so that
Interesting.
really helped me because then I had, instead of like trying to focus on memorizing a million problems, you're focused on memorizing maybe like 10 to 15 patterns that you can
Patterns.
reuse on all of those problems. Like they end up being pieces of most of them, most of the common ones end up being pieces of those patterns. Like the hard ones may be like 3 of those things hooked together. Like you need to do
Breath
breadth first
first
search
search.
in order to, but first you need to do a binary search, like you end up adding stuff together that creates
And it
really
starts
a hard problem.
It's
So
making sense.
you start
Okay.
making
So
more
is
sense.
Algo
Yeah.
Monster is I assume a paid resource, right? You have to pay for
It's a
it.
paid resource,
Okay.
right? But to me, it's worth it for sure. I
Worth it.
mean,
Okay.
Leetcode has a paid mode too. I'll
Yeah, yeah, I've
recommend
seen that.
that. While
Yeah.
you're in your interview process, of course, you can always stop paying for it or whatever. But I mean, Algo Monster, for
Interesting.
sure. Like
Never heard of that.
yeah.
I've
I
heard of
Algo
I've heard of Algo
Expert.
Expert.
Yeah, I use Algo Expert too. Algo Expert's nothing's wrong with it either, but I just like Algo Monster because
Okay.
if you like videos, Algo Expert is probably a little bit better. But Algo Monster has a philosophy that they don't use videos, and maybe some people may be against that. But it worked a lot better for me because the videos I end up having to rewind them or I missed something, and it felt like I couldn't copy and paste. Like I'm like a visual learner. And so with it being like a page, I could copy and paste it into my own notes and almost make like flashcards of such that I could almost look at real quick before an interview. You can't do that with videos.
No.
You just have to like watch it and retain it. But some people learn better by videos, so I understand that. But
I think for me, Algo Expert works for the videos, but I can definitely see the note taking on how Algo Monster. I'll check it out. It's my first time hearing this. I've never heard of Algo Monster, but Algo Monster. But I'm not surprised. There's so many tools out there.
So many tools now.
So it's like
I just recommend that, but really the best tool is the one that you fall in love with. Not fall in love with for a real sense, but like
that works.
That motivates you. And that was the one I used like a bunch of them, like, and that was the one that was like, okay, this junk is starting to make sense. Like I'm getting better at these somehow, like because it feels insurmountable at first. Right.
Years of experience. So I'm pretty sure you've tried a lot of things and resources and.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I've tried all kind of different things over the years. And so, and like the thing is about this programming thing and tech in general, no matter what kind of sub role that you're in, is that you have to keep learning. And I kind of got a little prideful after like 5-6 years. I was like, I don't need to go learn all that stuff because like I'm a senior level engineer, but you still have to learn it. Like I got back out where I started interviewing again, and I was like, I need to know these things. Like I know the concepts behind them. I've done the day-to-day work, but these are a little bit different. They're more like quizzy, for a better lack of an expression.
Yeah.
And so you have to practice them. Like, yeah.
And now that you're on the interviewing side, you're interviewing people, right?
Yeah. Right.
For them as you're interviewing folks. Sorry about that. I wanted to say a funny comment. Someone wrote in the comments, reverse a binary tree right now. For you.
I mean, I need something in front of me, but yeah, I could do it. I think I did that video.
Like, you know what? I've done that. Been there, done that.
I think I did a video. It's like on my channel somewhere, probably. I think. Yeah. Oh no, it's not revert. I think it's invert a binary tree or something like that.
Interesting. And I don't think I've heard or seen that. Invert a binary tree?
Yeah, invert a tree. You basically like flip it. You got to use code though. And the tree is like not an actual, it's a tree in memory, like in the code, an actual like an object. So yeah, I mean, trees are difficult. That's like a whole subset of the problem. See, that's where Algo Monster comes in. They're going to get down to the root and teach you about trees. And they're gonna build up your like foundation like it would in like a school or a boot camp or a course or something like that, rather than you just going on Leetcode. Leetcode's not gonna really help you with that. They're gonna give you the answers, and I feel like Leetcode turns into like a memorization game where you just kind of constantly trying to just remember all the solutions to the problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Someone else wrote, and the 15 patterns are just part of the five bigger patterns, which is one big pattern of arrays and vectors.
Yeah, yeah, if you think about it, like it does eventually start to like,
Makes sense.
narrow down,
Yeah.
right? Like, and like a lot of times a lot of problems end up getting solved with like a map. Like almost all the
Hmm.
hard problems have some sort of a map or array structure in them, data structures. Like when they say data structures and algorithms, it's like two or three data structures that you end up using for all the problems.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
think and I think that's a very common theme is just recognizing that I've seen so far is like recognizing the patterns. And I think there's
Mhm.
someone out there that wrote like a really good article that outlined all the
Yeah.
patterns that you can come across.
Right.
And I think just recognizing how to problem solve those patterns is just, and it's
Yeah.
just pretty much what you're saying. It's like you're going to continuously see these patterns just reworded differently and in different
Yep.
problem
Right.
examples, but it's all just like the same.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then you had these like tools that even if you get in the interview and you haven't seen the problem before, the interviewer is
Hmm.
gonna kind of try to help you. But if you can have those patterns in mind, then you can go through this mental list of can I put depth first search on this? Is this, binary search, or should I be doing, two pointers? Should I be using two pointers to do this? Should I use sliding window technique? You can just
Hmm.
run through those, and sometimes that'll give you like, oh, I can use this on that. Or sometimes the interviewer, you can just talk through it with the interviewer and say, I wonder if I should use sliding window, and they might say, I think that's a good idea.
Mm.
They might give you a little cheesy hint,
Pointers. Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, it helps.
Um, I guess also I just wanted to cover with you, you talked about freelancing, and I know right now, we're going through these big companies that are like tightening the belt, as they say, because of this
Yeah.
economic recession that they're talking about. Even though there are still jobs out there, I know the startup world is still actively hiring. Um, But now a lot of folks are kind of pivoting into like freelancing now, right?
Hmm.
Because of, layoffs or just trying to pick up a side hustle. And I know you talked about that you did that during the beginning of it. So like, I guess if you want to share with folks like freelancing, like what
Hmm.
websites did you work on and maybe like an example? Because I haven't dabbed into freelancing. I feel like freelancing is a very scary world
Hmm.
because
Yeah, it can be.
and because I just keep seeing these memes and comments on how like the client just wants to continuously change different things and has
Yeah,
these expectations, and you're like, wait, calm down, like it's not
that
like
definitely
that. But
can happen. Yeah. So, I'm not even gonna lie to you. I've definitely been burnt freelancing.
mm,
There have been issues before, but for the most part, it has been such a rewarding thing on top of my professional career, or it's augmented my professional career in so many ways that I would never trade it for the world. But I think some tips I can give for freelancing is um, it's a lot of intangible stuff outside of the actual technical development. So it's making sure you have a solid contract and
mm,
actually having a contract and not just winging it. Like no matter how small how small you think you are, or how small the job may seem to be,
mm,
have a solid contract and evolve your contract over time. Like the contract I used was weak and it got exposed early on. And so evolving into a better
yeah,
contract helped me out a lot. The other thing is not take any client. Like be a little bougie about the clients you take,
mm,
because if it seems like there's a red flag right now, then when, the S hits the wall, it's going to
mm.
get worse. In worst case, you're going to be in like some kind of
Sounds
dispute
like a
with them.
relationship.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like not all clients are good clients. Not all money is good money. Like they
Ooh,
could be offering a lot of money, but not all money is good money. So just know the
mm,
person you're working with, know how, and know, try to find somebody that's taking it as seriously as you are. Because a lot of times when you start out freelancing, you end up taking clients that are they got full-time jobs like you do maybe. They're not really taking it serious. They have this idea, but once they put that money down, then it's like
they
they
start
start
backing
having
out.
right. They have remorse, or it's more work from them than they thought it would be, or they haven't really thought the idea all the way through. And now once they start to run it into that, they're like, this ain't such a good idea as as I thought it was. So Another tip is to really vet the clients, really vet their business. Like you need to understand their business, understand how serious they are. It's
Mm-hmm.
better when you can to work with businesses. I've had better because they have budgets. They're a little less tied to the money. They're not just
Mm-hmm.
using like their tax money or something because you're just
Yeah.
more invested into it. Like, and that's the way business in the world works. People, the most successful
Consulting
companies, like
worlds too.
right, Instagram that we're using right now to do this, they use other people's money to build this app.
Yeah.
They got investment rounds, like so. People are always a little bit more comfortable and professional when they're using other people's money, and
His
that's kind
money.
of right. Yeah,
I would do the same.
it just it's just how it is. So like that'd be the other tip. Um, and then the last thing is, yeah, with your along with your contract is just the scope creep, like you talked about earlier. Define a solid scope and like put it on paper. Don't let it
Mm,
be just this word of mouth thing. I'm gonna
vague.
do this for you. Like say this is what I'm gonna deliver. We're gonna write down every feature. We're gonna find the issues up front. Yeah, things might change, but now if you change them, you have a source of truth that you're changing them from that you can just adapt and you have control over it. Otherwise, like, yeah, they're just going to keep asking for more and more over time as it takes you to get it done. And it's going to get out of control and it's not going to be worth it for you
Burnout.
anymore. And so, yeah, you definitely get like a scope of work in writing that you both agree to before you start. Checkpoints into, how much you're going to deliver.
Yeah.
And I'll say one more thing is don't I suggest not to take all their money up front. Take like a deposit to
Deposits.
hold their spot,
Mm-hmm.
of course, because you don't want them to hold the spot and you start work and then they change their mind and you've already done the work. Like never do more work than the money you've gotten. And so even
Mm.
if you put them on like a payment plan or something, you get to a checkpoint, you get the next payment, you do the rest of the work. So then if anything ever happens, they can't say that you did less work than they've paid you, and you can't say that you did more work
And what they
than
paid
you than
you.
yeah, right. So you're always in a good spot of like if you cut ties, you can say, hey, I'm gonna give you the code, I'm gonna give you this, we've done equal work,
Oh.
deuces, yeah, like I'm out. So that'd be the last thing I'd
Y'all
say.
heard it. And I'm taking these notes. I'm gonna replay this and listen to myself because I've been wanting to. It's like a thing that I've always wanted to like try, and
Hmm.
a lot of folks talk about it. I'm like super scared. And also not only that, like me myself, like I have ideas of things that I want to build at
Yeah,
myself, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't know. Um, but yeah, thank you for that. I wanted to go back and ask you, there's a couple of questions in the chat. I don't know how you want to do this.
for
Do you want to wait towards
sure.
the end? Someone said, advice for people aspiring to be a full stack developer through boot camps, how to get yourself out there. I guess I can go ahead and chime in a little bit on this since uh, I just came from a boot
Yeah.
camp. Um,
Do
I
they mean
am
like
firmly
after to get into a boot camp or after you've gotten out, like how you get yourself out there and get a job?
I'm not sure how to get yourself out there. Aspiring people to be a full stack developer through boot camps, how to get yourself out there. Um, I don't know. I'm gonna assume you're aspiring to be a full stack developer through a boot camp. I'm a boot camp graduate and I support it. I always tell people do your research, talk to people who've graduated from these boot camps, list at least 3 people. Look at the graduation rates, look at their course reports,
Man,
compare the
yeah.
curriculums. Secondly, if you already graduated from a boot camp, I'm going to assume that, and you want to put yourself out there. I always tell folks, create a personal brand. I created this platform, Poderosa Coding. This is my personal brand. This is how I'm marketing myself. This is how I present myself to companies, and they see the work that I'm doing. So they see my investment in the community, and they see my advocating through this brand. And so has Kelvin himself. So yeah, you can
Man,
chime in.
I agree with everything you said. You have a little bit more, you have way more experience coming from a boot camp than I do. But one thing I want to piggyback on is the social media thing, putting yourself out there. The
Yep.
social media thing has done so much for my career, way more for my career than I ever thought it would. I've
Wow.
gotten like job offers from it, or I've gotten hooked up to like directly
Wow.
to hiring managers from it. I've gotten it's been crazy. Like the freelance thing, that's one
Hmm.
tip I didn't want to go too long. But man, social media, if you build up of social media, like you will have an unlimited amount of clients. They're like, it's just it's
It
insane.
speaks
Like,
for itself.
right, right. Like
It
it
speaks
because
for
yeah,
itself.
they see me doing these apps and sharing these. They're just like,
Hmm.
okay, I don't even need to like you got like a year
Do
or
deep
3 years.
research or reference.
Right. And even for like the interviews, I remember when it was like, I guess I could say it now because I didn't take the job, but it was this guy at Microsoft. Like, I didn't end up taking the job, but
Mm.
it was a hiring manager, not a recruiter, the actual hiring manager at the job. And I said, he's like, we were having an introductory call. He's like, yeah, somebody referenced you from social media, and they said you were great, and
Mm.
da da da. And I looked at your social media, it was great. And so I'm asking him, like, what is the interview going to be like? I was like, it's going to be real technical. I'm going to have to do Leetcode. He's like, nah, I looked at your social media. I know you know all that stuff. When he said that, this is Microsoft. This ain't just like,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is basically a fame company.
Mm.
They're not into fame, but they might as well
Yeah.
be. And it's like, come on. Like, do I have to say any more about the power? Because I think some people think
Listen,
like, oh, you're wasting your time just posting stuff, man. So many connections I
no.
made, like you and other people on here. I've learned so much, like even, how far
I
I
agree.
have been in the industry. It's new stuff coming out. So I've learned so much from people on here. And so I can't second that enough, just to like put yourself out there through social, man.
Listen, I stress it to the T. I tell people, share your story, share your voice, because there's someone out there that needs to hear. There's someone out there that
Yeah.
needs to see you. There's You and I are two completely different people, and the way what you create on your page is different from mine.
Right.
And someone new coming out creating a page has different idea, has different
Right.
context. Like we're all unique for a reason, and you just need to put yourself out there. And
Right.
I 1,000% agree. I have someone else asked a question here. They want me to ask you, how did you learn / study for system design?
Oh, I think I did see that question slide by. Man, system design is a tough one to study for because it's when they ask you this in interview. Now, if you're trying to learn it for an interview versus trying to learn it for real life, it's like two different questions. I feel like
Mm.
my personal opinion. But when they ask you that in the interview, they're basically looking for your technical level of depth, and they're trying to see where to place you as far as your seniority. So if you're going to an interview saying you're a senior dev, but you don't know about A, B, and C as part of like system design and infrastructure, then they could down rank you, especially the bigger companies. They'll do that. But when they ask you this, they're not looking for, when they say design Netflix, they're not looking for you to like regurgitate how Netflix is actually designed. They're looking for you to know about the pieces of how, know how a system is designed,
Mm.
know how systems should be properly scaled, know what the different components are and how these components speak to each other, know what a microservice architecture is, know how to scale a database, know how to cache. Like they want to know these different things that these big companies use to scale their applications to millions of users in the world. And they want you to be able to use those pieces and put that together at a small level, conceptually, and not like actually, like
Hmm.
not the definite. They're not like trying to get you to like memorize what Twitter and Instagram architectures look like. So when I'm studying for them, there's a lot of I personally use YouTube videos. I actually used Algo Expert has a thing called Systems Experts, I think, or System
Hmm.
Expert, that basically is for system design. They give a bunch of examples and
Oh,
explain
wow.
how these systems are designed. There's a book that everybody spouts. I haven't personally read it, but I
I think
know
I
it's.
know the book. A friend of mine has it. I think it's called System. Is it a blue book, System Designs?
I think that's it. It has some kind of name that I always hear on social media
Oh,
all the time,
oh,
but
then it may not be that one then.
it's it's like designing something systems. I don't know, like designing scalable systems, or I don't know, something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, that's really good. I just know I trust the people who say that it's really good. Me personally, I'm more of like, I like to use like internet resources and use YouTube and stuff like that. I just and what I did is I just looked at as many YouTube videos, like design Netflix, design YouTube. I try to look at different things, not just social media sites. Design a parking garage is one of them. design Dropbox, and that was an interesting one. And what I did is took notes, and that's one thing. Like when I was practicing for interviews, take a bunch of notes that you can review right before the interview. It really helps, or you can just view it anytime, like your downtime. Like it just helps it stick. It helps you just, I don't know. And then when you take notes, you end up having to comprehend it better, because in order to take your own notes, you like put it in your own form. You gotta know what it's saying, so you might have to rewind. But yeah, so that would be my tips for sure.
What I'm understanding is like what you're saying is just get an understanding of how these systems are designed and get exposure to a variety of systems, not just social media platforms. Like a city application, like a cashier or POS system, etc. Like understand these things. Okay. So the studying really comes with just like watching and understanding the systems that are being used and how these applications are being built. And note taking. So not a lot of doing is what I hear. Right?
Yeah, right. Like with that, I mean, you can, I encourage you to do your own. Like one thing that I went and did when I felt like I wasn't like, I hadn't done enough infrastructure, is I just went on AWS and took some of their courses that they have on the site. Like they're just web courses, like, because AWS wants you to use, they want to make it as easy as possible. And so I actually went and like built my, went on AWS, spin up my own virtual servers, put like Linux on them, put Nginx on them, like actually built my own, like I was used to building like web applications or like web APIs, but I would never be the one to deploy them. So I went and just learned how to deploy them myself and like what that looks like, how to horizontally scale servers so that they, so like just learning how to do that myself was definitely valuable. But I think in the course of those interviews, they're more or less, like, I don't know how much that would help you with other aspects of the interview, but like the system, it would help you with the system design, no doubt. But I think what could happen is you could design something that's completely different than what they're, like if you went and did a Twitter type app, but then they ask you to design like, I don't know, Dropbox, then you might still be lost because you're like, it's just so different. So I think you really need to learn, like reading that book or finding some learning resource that teaches you how infrastructure, like how servers work, how do you horizontally scale servers, how do you vertically scale servers, like as far as like adding more memory, CPU, like knowing how that works. What's the cloud, what's virtual servers, like the cloud servers versus on-premise servers, like, so what's the difference between like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud Platform versus servers
the competitors,
so like just learning more about that, I think can definitely help
give you a level up. Did you hear that, Admit? That's a good friend of mine. He was the one that asked the question.
It's a hard one. I mean, for those, every company is different. For the junior level roles, they're not necessarily going to ask you that too much. And what I found is that a lot of developers, you end up learning it in the course of a job really quickly. It can be shocking at first, but like now, these days, a lot of these jobs want you to be more, they want you to have some DevOps skills, or at least want you to understand how the program you're building is going to be deployed and is going to be run and maintained and scaled as it's out there in the world. And so I learned so much from work that I probably have like a skewed answer, because I learned a lot from work. So then like studying these other systems, I already understand the core concepts, but like learning about how the biggest companies in the world, the techniques they use, and then just building a tool set. So then when they ask me a question in the interview, then it's not about getting the perfect right answer, but it's about having all these, like being able to discuss these, right? Like literally with the interview, you discuss the trade-offs and say, oh, I think we should use Redis for the caching layer so that we don't have to hit the database directly every time. We have this set of data, commonly used data sitting up front that we can just hit very quickly without an expensive database call. Like being able to kind of like talk through something like that is something you get from experience, of course, but it's also something that you could study as well and be able to have a trade-off conversation.
Yeah. up conversations, like the what's, like what and why reason they would use that, and
Right.
the competitors as
Right.
well. That's a good
Right.
way to look at it. There was another question here. What about transition, pivoting from different backgrounds for designers? Um, I'm not sure what that meant, but then I guess the same person asks, I am Chloe asks, how can junior designers get a start in this current market with layoffs and such?
Hmm. Are they trying to like, are you trying to switch into like a more technical role, like from design to a technical role, I wonder? Or if like you're trying to, um, I don't know, if you're trying to come into tech into a designer role, because like you can be a designer in tech or out of tech as well. Like designer is a technical role as well. So,
Banking to this, they said yes, banking to design.
oh, from banking to design. Okay,
Hmm.
so like getting how to pivot into design. I think like it's probably very similar. I mean, it's different because the content that you would need to practice or study is different, but I think some of the things about the approach to switching to tech in general are the
Hmm.
same. Um, I think, you can either go to school for it. It kind of goes back to the go to school versus the boot camp concept.
Yeah.
And for me, like, I'm so glad to say that now in 2022, that you can take either route and you can get to basically the same place. You can either go.
Yeah.
I work with people. They went to school, didn't even get a technical degree. They got like international affairs or something, and they still went and learned tech on their own. So it's like I think you need to find a way you best learn, whether that's taking a boot camp, because some people need structured learning. They just can't. They don't have the.
Me.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I need. At least, especially very early on in my life, I definitely needed. I needed to go to school
Yeah.
because I needed something to force me to, do the stuff that I needed to do. And then some people don't like school, and like school can be expensive, and there's a lot of drawbacks to it, but there's a lot of advantages
Yeah.
to it as well. And for those people that don't want to do that, there are now like these great boot camps out here that you can do very quickly. Yeah, they can seem expensive, but compared to school, it's probably not
Listen,
as expensive in as long of an
long
investment, and you
term.
can
Hmm.
right. And they're gonna like teach you the stuff. It's gonna be closer to the actual job, a lot closer to the actual
Yep.
job.
Yep.
So
I agree.
you're gonna be able
And
to.
this person just wrote, they're taking a boot camp now, but it's not enough life experience with it. So they are in the boot
Mhm.
camp then. So
Okay,
I
they feel
think,
like it's
yeah, it's
not
not
enough
enough
real life.
experience. And I think it goes back to what you said earlier, right? Where
Yeah,
you said, like do projects, do things outside of, your boot camp, just like you did. You took the gap and you went to freelancing, but you still built out applications on the
right,
side
right.
to close that gap of knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know it can take time, and you have to make the time for it, and we're all busy, especially if you're working, you're in school, and but like taking that little bit extra time, even if you don't go all the way as far as freelancing, or even if you don't go all the way as far as building these huge apps that you want to
Mhm.
like put out in the world, just doing a few like side projects on the side, like it can really boost your learning, because you run into stuff that you won't run into, problems that you won't run into in a boot camp, because it's still structured learning. Yeah, they give you autonomy or whatever to like learn on your own and solve the problems or whatever, but for the most part they have a structured problem they want you to solve most of the time, and it has a clear answer. But when you're doing your own projects, it's not always like, sometimes there's no solution for what you're trying to do. And just even being able to Google, Chat GPT,
Mhm.
whatever you want to use now, being able to research those problems, get stuck on those bugs, and getting through those
Mhm.
bugs and stuff like that are going to get you so prepared for the job. It's going to send you into areas of learning that you would have never done on your own. Like you run into some compiling issue, and now you learned about how the C# compiler works or something.
Yeah.
Like you're going to just run into stuff that you never learned on your own. And that's why I say, like, as part of anything you do, you need to do your own projects as well. And then the beauty of choosing your own projects is you can pick some problem that you have in real life. Like I built this app on the App Store back when I started doing social media. I used to do a lot of copying and pasting text all over the place. So I just built this app that just allows me to quickly save text. It's a simple app, but allows me to quickly save text in my phone, and I can just tap it to copy it and put it on all these different social media sites. And I kind of use it as a storage system for all my quick text that I want to copy and paste. But like, yeah, it
But
was
again, it was a problem and you figured
a
out a solution for it.
solution. Right. I learned something doing it. I used it in interviews, and I don't know, it was something fun. Like you said, it was a real world thing. I learned how to deploy an app to the App Store, which I can talk about for, forever now. So
Yeah, there you go. I agree to it. And I think also another good thing, hackathons too. If you're like
oh yeah.
scared of like maybe, doing something by yourself, and I don't know, there's different reasons why a lot of people may be intimidated to like a side project alone. Maybe do like a hackathon, something really quick, and you get to network and meet other people, and then you can also say, hey, I was part of a team and we had a deadline and it was a hackathon, because that's how hackathons are.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's something I never really thought about too much. I never did a lot of hackathons or anything since I got out of school. But like that is your learning will be so accelerated, because once I joined my first company and you're working with other devs and you're either pairing up or just talking every day, just like you end up learning so much faster out of necessity of needing to get the work done. And then you learn from more senior people and people that have done it. And I think you can get a lot of similar aspects from doing the hackathons without actually having a job yet. You can almost get some of that like experience per se. That's a nice, nice.
Sorry, Kelvin. I'm just gonna scroll up. I have here someone else said they have an associate degree in computer programming where they learned Java, C++, Linux, Unix, and etc. back in 2013. They recently started a certificate course on cybersecurity on Coursera. Do you think after a few certifications, I will be able to find a job on IT? I have no experience.
So you had experience programming in the past, about 10 years ago, or you at least did a little bit of, you had a degree in it, I think you said, or associate degree.
Associate degree on computer programming.
And now you're trying to come back, but you're trying to go through like the cybersecurity route and getting some certifications. That's not really my area of expertise, like the cybersecurity route. There's a lot of great like tech folks on here that probably know a lot more than me, but I can speak in the aspect of like the tech industry in general. The certification, I mean, I think you're going to have to try to find some experience somewhere. I don't know much about the certifications in security. Maybe there's some you can get that are just like instant job getters, but a lot of the times like you're probably going to need, it's going to be still going to be pretty tough. I think you can get a job if you can interview really well, and you can get the interviews. If you're getting interviews, you're definitely going to get a job. I think the problem is getting interviews if you don't have enough. Like if you can get in the room, you might fail a few, but everybody fails a few. Eventually you'll get a job. But is your resume getting you through the room with just the certification, getting you into the interviews with just the certifications? That would be my main question. If not, then you need to figure out how to pad your resume. It's basically what I'm saying in a long-winded way. Yeah. That means still doing some freelance security work, finding like some, maybe going open source route, trying to find some open source projects to contribute to, trying to find, there's so many hacks you can do to pad your resume. Like one thing I didn't mention, or I kind of mentioned it, but it's kind of along the lines of freelance. Like I got this guy that came to my job. He didn't have any experience, and like I told him like go and find a friend, family member, or knock on the door of businesses, and not actually knock, but like find businesses that would allow you to just do the work for free. Write up a real contract with them. Like say we're doing this for 6 months. I'm going to do A, B, and C for you. Complete it. Do good work for them. And then you can put that on your resume. Now, if you got the time to do this and the will and energy to do this, but you can put that on your resume as I did contract work. I did freelance. You can call it freelancing, or you can say I did contract work because you actually had a contract with this company for,
Mm-hmm.
however long, no matter how, how it was. And if you can get them to vouch for it, you actually did good work. It's a way for you not only to learn and have real experience, you can talk with authenticity, but then you also have something to pad your resume to say, okay, he's actually been doing, or she has actually been doing something,
Yeah.
and not just have a certification. Not that the
Certifications.
certification
Yeah.
helps, definitely. Definitely, I'm sure all of them help a lot, but
You
experience
just
still is
need
king.
some,
Right,
yeah, you just need a project.
right,
And I think so, just like a boot camp, right? Like I went through a boot camp, but then
right,
it's like, okay, you went through a boot camp, all right, can I see what you've done?
right.
And then that's where the applications that I built, which I built 2 applications, are on my LinkedIn. And another
Right.
powerful thing is use LinkedIn. You need
Yeah.
LinkedIn in order to
Yeah.
get a job in tech. Like you cannot get a job
Yeah.
in tech and not have a
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
That's
So
the first
leverage
thing
your
anybody gonna do is look up
listen.
your LinkedIn
They're gonna
if they
look
ain't
up your
already on it.
LinkedIn. Yeah. Look up your LinkedIn, add your certifications, and I'm pretty sure there's cybersecurity. From what I remember, I've seen other folks. There are cybersecurity different hackathons that you can
Mm-hmm.
do. There's
Yeah.
probably other different volunteer cybersecurity projects that you can work on. But showing that you have certifications is one thing, but also doing it, like proving it to the
Yeah.
person or the individual, like, hey, I have done these certifications, but look at also the work that I've done to kind of
Right.
be like a supplemental to the certification.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, I took the certifications, I took this course, and the outcome of that is that I learned and look what I did.
Right.
So I
Exactly.
apply the learning by doing this here.
Right. Yeah, I think that
So
gives you a better chance. You'll start to get more interviews with companies you actually like, and then once you start getting a lot of interviews, it's just a numbers game. At that point, you're eventually going to get a job. Like,
yeah.
one thing people don't talk about is how much I still fail interviews, like, there's no point you're going to get to, right,
Same.
where you just like knock them out the park every time, but it's, can you get in a room?
Mm-hmm.
And like, after you get that first job, it gets a lot easier to get into the rooms. That's why I know
Yeah.
experience is king, because like you can get in a job. I've seen people now, especially like on social media, like, yeah, I was in a job for 3 months and I switched to another job. Like, because that experience, that 3 months of experience is like worth more than anything else you ever did. And that's not to discourage anyone, but it just means that like, just hold on, keep trying. Because once you get your foot in the door in the industry, it's like gold, and you're just,
Yeah.
you're ready to go. So not that it's
It's
not
like,
hard anymore, but
yeah,
yeah.
it's like trying to get on a slide and you're trying to find the tube to get on the
Yeah.
slide and you're like, wait,
Right.
I want to get on this pretty cool slide.
Right.
Once you're in the tube and you're going down the slide, it's just
Right.
it's just uphill from there.
Right. You just,
Um,
yep. Yep.
and I can say that for myself because, and I'm going again, like LinkedIn is heavy on the LinkedIn, heavy presence on LinkedIn, heavy presence in terms of your
Mhm.
certification. Create your brand and voice. I think, and you can speak to this, and I think you spoke to this about yourself. Like I've been outreached so many times because of my social
Yeah.
media
Yeah.
presence, from
Man.
founders of startups, from media outlets that have wanted
Right.
to interview me because of my presence on the internet, right? Just because I put myself out there and I do these things and I collaborate with people like you as well to bring this information to the community.
Right.
Um, so yeah,
So
so yeah.
that's
Sorry, I was
probably
just
another
reading
tip for that
here.
person. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, I know everybody's different. Maybe pick it if you like. Maybe you like to tweet more. Maybe get more active on Twitter if you don't
that's
like to show
true.
your face so much.
Yeah.
Like, there's some social platform you can use. Maybe even just posting on LinkedIn and keeping it more professional. But like that really separates you when somebody's looking at your resume and they get a little deeper down and they see you, if they're interviewing you about cybersecurity and then you made some post the other day about the latest security vulnerability that came out, or that was everybody was in frenzy about, and they can see that you easily understand it on your own just randomly, then it really provides a great signal for recruiters and interviewers, like
Hmm.
that, people undervalue, I think.
And we have one more question here. I think we're
Sure.
running into the hour soon. Someone said they just did their first hackathon a week ago. How can designers better communicate with devs?
Oh, how can designers better communicate with devs? That's probably like a two-way question because like, how can devs better communicate with designers? That's a great question because like, yeah, there sometimes can be a little bit of a friction between designers and devs because,
Them figmas.
right, like the designers they want their vision to come through. They want the impossible to be down, but the developers, they're more, yeah, right. We're more practical. We want, we know it can be done easily. We know it's not going to be brittle. We know what's technically possible and what's technically feasible. And so, I learned over the years. I started out over the years of like being like super resistant, but I think just being more communicative like is just always the best way to go. Like from a, involve if you want to have a better relationship with the designers and vice versa, involving them in more of kind of, from a dev perspective, involving the designer more of the technical details at a high level so they understand a little bit how the system works, just enough to know that I can't just put this swirly spinner on this page because technically, like, I mean, you can't explain everything to them, but just building a better rapport with them and kind of giving them the technical details of how it works can help out a lot. From a designer perspective, trying to share your vision and share more of because the developers don't understand UX and UI all the time, and like what are the things that, what makes a good UX, what makes, this button needs to be a circle because of this, and this color needs to be this color because of that, or, like we don't understand that you actually have a philosophy behind it. If you do, hopefully you do. And so explaining that and being more communicative and transparent about your process and your goals, because you have a job to do too, and you want to put out some great product that's going to stand, and like just, being more clear about that. The problem comes in, I've seen, is when there's just this big wall up and like just a Figma being passed over. And it's like, that's when it's the worst, because then you're not talking. One's complaining about they won't never do, the designers, and they won't never do what I put on the paper. It's a pixel off. And the developers saying they want to do something impossible. They even understand how this system works. That's not even something you can do. This user doesn't even have this. We don't even have this data in our system that they want to do. Because that's a lot of times what happens is designers, and I know I'm rambling, but designers will turn into product managers a little bit too. Like they'll start adding in buttons and adding in stuff that's like, it's one thing doing design, but it's another thing like when you're adding in features through your design. Like your design is telling me that right. And so I think, when there's a good synergy and communication can just go a long way, and not having like a huge wall up like that sometimes can happen in a lot of teams and companies. So,
and I think that goes across the board, right? Like having good communication, not only like designers, but product managers, tech leads, architecture, et cetera, quality analysts, and et cetera. Like that is key. Like you need to have communication, and you need to have patience and understanding of like, why can you not do this? What can and cannot do? Because again, we're all different. We all have different skill sets. We all have different understandings of the tech stack and how technology works. But we as a team, once we come together, this is how we're building this product, because we all have part in it. And the only way it is just communicating. And sometimes it's actually even better to over communicate too. That's just how things get done. But thank you, Kelvin. We are at the hour, sort of. I appreciate you and everyone for engaging and interacting. There were so many really good questions, a lot that was talked about. Is there anything you wanted to close? I'm sorry?
I said I enjoyed this. Thank you for inviting me. And thanks for all the
long overdue, but there's a lot of tips and resources that you shared here. And everyone can go ahead and give Kelvin a follow. And I think someone also asked for our LinkedIn and GitHubs. I have it in my bio, and I'm assuming you have it in your bio too.
If you click on my link in bio, it should have like all that stuff in there.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming through. Again, Kelvin, thank you so much for doing this with me. I appreciate you. And gonna go ahead and close out.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much as well.
All right. Bye y'all.